It wasn't a ripple, it had quite an effect. And yes, I'm sorry if I'm a bit nervous because this is the first time I've stepped out after that to talk. More importantly, I think all my fellow contemporary actors have covered pretty much everything I also would have underlined or spoken of. पर मैं संक्षेप में कहूँगा, जैसे आयुष्मान हिंदी में वार्तालाप करें तो मैं संक्षेप में कहूँगा. I concur with all three of them to the extent where I believe it's not about new age cinema, like Bhumi was saying. We've made all kinds of cinema for so many years. Like Ayushmann mentioned, there was a divide and there was a conversation that happened about niche, about ये art cinema है, ये इस type की film है, ये उस type की film है. I think there has been an evolution in our audience, primarily. That's why we have been allowed to be successful as actors. I think we are all four prime examples of breaking the norm and not being conventional. And I'll talk about my work because we all have been flaunting our own work for the last few minutes. It primarily comes down to, I've grown up here in the fraternity. I have also done exactly the same stuff that Tahir was talking about. Danced on other people's songs to learn dancing, done action class, done monologues from old Hindi films. Aaj mere paas bangla hai, bank balance hai, gaadi hai, whatever. We've done all that. And then when I was offered Ishaqzadeh, when I auditioned and I got the script, I'm sure pretty much now everybody here knows the interval is something unbelievable in terms of Hindi film writing. And I wouldn't even go very far back. I would say 2001 was when Hrithik Roshan made his conventional Hindi film debut, which was very, very successful because I think the audience was still very, very aspirational then. They had no sense of, they had still not evolved in terms of exposure, experience, Western civilization, having the internet, television for example, or just generally the conversations were very different then. We were still very, very aspirational in our film viewing. That's why we had so many more stars and superstars. When I was offered Ishaqzadeh, when I read that scene, I just got back to thinking maybe even 3 or 4 years before that film released, to be told that a Hindi film hero for a banner like Yashraj Films would make his debut in a film where he ends up molesting a girl after marrying her and is going to be called the main lead of a film and I would be accepted by the entire country. Is just a prime example of the change in the thought process of an audience. They are much, much more evolved than we give them credit for. There is Vikas is not here today. I think Vikas would have been a prime example to talk about. A film like Queen wouldn't have even been able to get made maybe a couple of years back. And that all stems from the fact that now we have an audience that is willing to spend money to not just go कि यार time pass करके आते theatre में. Time pass करने के लिए हमारे पास आज 3G है phone पे. हमारे पास आज TV में 100 channels हैं. We can download things whenever we want. And time pass करने के लिए और AC खाने के लिए आप लोगों ने theatre में जाना बंद कर दिया. The time for average is going away. Filmmaking is a serious business because, like everybody was saying, there is a huge dichotomy in our audience. The same person will not appreciate Finding Fanny the same way maybe somebody in Bombay might. In Bihar, it won't even see a release. But that does not stop an actor or a director or producer from taking chances. We still continue to do that. Primarily, it stems from the fact that we have grown up in that environment and the change of the thought. We are an extension of the audience. Our acceptance is because they find a relation to us, they correlate to us. There is no sense of, "Arey, mujhe Arjun jaise banna hai." There is an idea, "Arey, Arjun apne jaisa hai." So when the audience finds a believability and a relatability to you, then they don't mind coming and seeing you pushing the envelope. Because Arjun apne jaisa to apne saath bhi ye ho sakta hai. It becomes as simple as that. So if there is a boy who meets me in Jodhpur when I went for a wedding after Ishaqzadeh release and he said, "Arey, jaise aap ladki se baat karte ho na Ishaqzadeh mein, main bhi waise hi karta hu." And I'm like, okay, I lived in Bombay all my life, but I didn't even know. They correlate and they feel so much of emotion towards the characters that they watch. So audiences still want to come to theatres, they still want to enjoy themselves, but they don't want to be taken for granted. And that's why I feel the new age argument, conversation, of course we will have commercial films, but eventually we as actors, the onus lies upon us to take those risks. I mean, I'm very proud of Anushka Sharma for doing NH10. A few years back, people would have disowned the film. I mean, they would have said, "Yeah, why do you want to show this aspect of India? We should hide it from the world. We should not speak about it." Today, people are applauding them for making a film that is real. It is very, very real. I mean, it is gut-wrenchingly real. A guy like me who's used to seeing all kinds of cinema shut my eye when she is in that car in the end because it is very real. Mardani, for example, who who would have thought that we talk about child trafficking in our country, which is such a taboo subject? It exists. These thoughts, these ideas have always existed in society. We have been very scared to translate them on screen. What's happened is with our audience being accepting, them having exposure, them wanting to start interesting conversations, it allowed us to make all kinds of cinema. Some will fail, some will work. But the idea is we will keep pushing the envelope, and eventually, I hope, and I'm a big believer of commercial cinema. I mean, I've grown up watching all kinds of commercial cinema, Ram Lakhan, Mr. India, you can name it. I have always loved commercial cinema, and my choices reflect that. But I hope that our industry finds the correct balance. It's something that has been lacking for many, many years. We just ride a wave of what we think is working. If a horror film works, we will announce 20 other horror films. If a romantic comedy based in London is working, 30 units will land up in London to shoot, because वहाँ पे rebate भी मिलता है. That philosophy and ideology has to change from the industry, because the audience does not care about all that. The audience wants to have a good time, but they want layers now. They don't want, like I said, time pass and average is something that is available at fingertips to people. We have to go beyond, and we have to think beyond, and I think this conversation is just the start. At the end of the day, I think the full credit goes to the people who come to theatres and they reject bullshit that we give them. I think that is very, very important. And I know critics get a lot of flack, but there are certain films that wouldn't have seen the light of the day if it wasn't for people who give you that opinion. Go watch Ship of Pieces, go watch Lunchbox. I mean, who many years back would have thought that we have a Lunchbox happening in our country? Who would have thought Dam Laga Ke Haisha? And I'm going to use this as a commercial example primarily, because the main lead of that film, it's a hero-driven so-called industry, which I completely negate, because I think it's content-driven more than it's ever been, because even our biggest superstars are gullible when they don't make decent cinema, even commercially. He had a film that didn't do well, it wasn't successful at the box office a month before Dam Laga Ke Haisha released. And Dam Laga Ke Haisha's trailer intrigued everybody, but everybody was saying, yeah, will it, won't it, will it, won't. And I'm talking about the industry, I'm not talking about the audience. Because the audience is clearly given an outstanding verdict. We within the industry were thinking, yeah, क्या होगा, क्या नहीं होगा. लोग देखेंगे, what kind of a film will it be? And I think the reviews come out by Friday afternoon. I think by Friday afternoon, the critics had spoken, the audiences heard the critics call. They started going to the theatre. The film started with ₹1 crore on the first day. It has done over 28 crore rupees. I think to do a Dam Laga Ke Haisha or a Band Baja Barat has more value than doing 200 crore films if the public loves and appreciates it. And I'm sure he also do a 100 crore film. I'm sure she also do a 100 crore film, but that 100 crore has no value unless you get the kind of love Dam Laga Ke Haisha has got. So I think the audience love is what we need to work towards more than just numbers, because numbers come and go, but that love is what will take us forward and make us take more chances. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you, Arjun. We'll get into the discussion here. What a great time to have this conversation. Literally, in the period when we've had 4 back-to-back interesting films. We had Badlapur. Close on the heels of that, we had Dam Laga Ke Haisha. We had NH10 right after, and there was Hunter, which is just released, which is also has strong word of mouth, which people seem to appreciate. It's a great time to have this conversation, and it's a great time when this question sort of becomes relevant. Are we ready to declare that Bollywood is finally formula-free? Because these films are not formulaic films. These films have broken some sort of mold. But are we rushing, if we were to say, based on these 4 successes, or based on the response to these 4 films, if we were to say that indeed we've broken formula, indeed we're formula-free, are we rushing that? Do you feel like that's too soon? And it's what you said. You said that it's a ripple. It's not a wave just yet. I want to get your opinion. I want to get all your opinion on that. Do you feel it's too soon to declare it a trend?
Yeah, it is soon.
I don't know. I think I would like to thank the World Cup for that. The medium and small budgeted films, which are more content driven, I think they're coming to the fore because there are no big releases here. And back to back, the 4 so-called content-driven films did really well. Started with Badlapur, then Dam Laga Ke Haisha, NH10, and now Hunter. I've liked all the films, and they're doing pretty well. They did not. There was no congruent area in between. They were not stepping into each other's shoes. The genres were completely different. And again, as Arjun said, the audiences have matured a lot, and this really helped. Timing and the maturity of the audience, and of course, to top everything is the content.
I think, of course, it is a bit early to start assuming that this is the only way forward.
Right.
But I do believe that this is a good direction to catch on to. It's very difficult to kind of encompass the fact that, okay, there's a phase going on right now where we've not had a commercial success for a while. But that's also because I feel our commercial films have not been capable of delivering. They've not been very, very entertaining, engaging, including a film that I did, which was not successful, because there is a sense of fatigue from the audience in terms of the genres that we've explored commercially. Suddenly there will be some commercial films that will also do well towards the latter half of the year. There will be lots of them, I'm sure, I hope, otherwise the industry cannot function. Those films also have to do well for these to get made. I mean, a Varun Dhawan cannot do a Barlapur unless he has a Mehter, Hero and Humphrey Sharma happening a year before. So it is interrelated. But that's why the choices of actors is important. And Anushka does a PK knowing she wants to do an NA stand somewhere in between. A Phantom is making many other films so they can make a Hunter in between also. You have to, that balance, for me it's about finding the right balance. The audience will come and see it on merit of what they like. At the end of the day, you cannot predict the audience coming in for what kind of films.